Hello, everyone. This is Tom Dorham with VCIO Global. I'm in the chair for Tony today. Welcome back. We are really excited to welcome Sean Woods with Y Technology, and we're going to talk about AI. Some of the things that we think we know, some of the misconceptions, and so hang with us. This is going to be a great discussion. Sean, welcome back. We're so happy to have you with us today. And we want to talk about AI. I know everybody's talking about AI, and most people are probably ready to tune out. But I think you've got a little bit more of a detailed take on things that people need to be thinking about.
Sure. A lot of activity, as you know. And, I'm thinking about just even the buzzword, right? Remember Claude when that came out?
Yeah.
And then everything was about Claude. And how many times did we have to kind of parse out what the customer was asking about? And okay, that's Claude, that's not, right? And, so there's some abuse there, of course, but general excitement, and people, some people thinking positively, some people, the fears creep in there. Losing control, and all types of things. But yeah, there's a lot of activity around it. In fact, when we send out information to a prospective customer, we're typically adding all of the AI capabilities that that we provide to them, just because of the fact that it's we know they're going to be asking about it within a certain amount of time.
Right. Well, okay. So you send them the information, and now they have some questions. Walk us through the process. What are the considerations a company needs to really take into account to undertake an AI initiative appropriately?
So we talked previously about, as an organization, how are they looking at AI? Are they coordinated with their other departments at the same time? Do they have their internal controls down to where they're ready for that, to look at it as an organization, as opposed to, because typically what happens is that one department's really pushing for it because there's excitement. Maybe there's particular people that are responsible for that department that are really into it. Maybe, there's a particular need that they have that they think that AI can address that, and they're pushing for it, right? And so maybe we'll have a discussion with those department heads, and then give them some insight to that, and then we start there, and then all of a sudden it spreads like wildfire to the other departments because, oh my gosh, the wheels start turning. Once you start giving them some use case examples,
right,
and then they start getting a little bit more in detail, then the wheels start turning, and then they're starting to share that with other department heads, and then it's like, it's a fire.
They call it the light bulb moment, right? It's like the light bulb moment happens, and all of a sudden, but how do you get them ready for the light bulb moment? How do you set the stage to make sure that you discuss security, there's privacy issues, there's all kinds of consideration.
Exactly. Okay, so where we start is, again, those internal controls and the documentation and gaps between their controls and so forth. And it really actually starts at an organizational level with that being the key. Because here's what happens is, as you guys understand, it's all about data, right? It's all about the data because, in programming, in the days of programming, right, you have a problem and you want to fix that problem and you write a program, right? And then what is a program? It's just addressing, different problems as a whole to be able to come up with a solution, right? So you're coming up with this software solution. Now you have AI coming in here, and which it relies on data. Okay, there's without data, then what can you do, right? And it's difficult to write a framework when you have no data. So they start with collection of data, and years ago, right? Maybe 10 years ago, big data. You hear it all the time. What the heck is it, right? Certain companies.
It's big, Sean.
That's right, MS data, and they're collecting it, and some progressive businesses. Let's collect this, okay? Why were they collecting it? Well, some of them, maybe, they had this process and they were geared and prepared for this process. because sometimes people are saying, oh, AI just jumped on us. Okay, for some people they feel that way, but for some other progressive businesses, it didn't just jump. Okay, it's been coming and they've been preparing for it and so forth. And so big data out there, collection of all of this data. And well, now what are we going to do with it? Now AI's here, and frameworks are need to be generated and built to accomplish and to take that data and do something with that, right? Okay, and then you hear about agents and agents being developed to meet specific needs, and bots, sales bots. They're out there all over the place nowadays, right? We're going to help you sell. We're going to write this bot so that your salespeople don't have to do anything except look at their calendar and meet with a prospective customer and close that deal. They're not going to need to do anything else because the sales bot is going to take care of everything else, even including the schedule.
You mentioned what do words mean, and so you use the term agent and you use the term bot. Are those different things, or are they the same thing?
Well, so it depends upon who you're talking to, right? We're talking to the development staff as opposed to an end user or whatever. So an agent, it essentially can be the same thing.
Okay.
So, from an end user's perspective and so forth, yeah. It's interesting also, the progression, I think I was mentioning too, there was a hackathon they had, and this was a company called 11 Labs. They had it, and then they pretty much decided, hey, AI, communicating with AI, in English, why would we do that? It's just not fast and efficient and accurate enough. So some developers got together, and then they created what's called Gibberlink. Okay.
Gibberlink.
And
Nice.
And it sounds exactly like the word sounds, right? So I remember they had a demonstration of two AIs talking to each other on just these laptops so that we could hear. And the one AI says, to the other AI, hey, guess what? I'm going ahead and taking care of making arrangements for my boss for travel arrangements for the next 3 years, let's say, or whatever, right? And talks to and this other AI is maybe for travel agency or something like that. And it's, oh, you're AI? Well, I'm AI too. Can we go ahead and speak in Gibberlink? Well, sure. And then you hear, right? And then within seconds or whatever, they've gone ahead and mapped out the next 3 years worth of travel arrangements and calendaring events and all this for this particular executive. So it was quite amazing. And, technically we could decode a portion of that Gibberlink, but because it's morphing and changing and adapting so quickly, we would never be able to fully catch up with that and understanding what that means. So it's kind of like, consider it shorthand, really, for AI to communicate with each other. So that's just one small example of the advances.
What's AI communicating with each other about? I mean, are they talking about me?
They could be. They could be. If you say, hey, Sean, I want you guys to, generate a sales bot or a bot to help me with, my scheduling for the next 3 years and, whatever, and then it's communicating, they can actually communicate with another sales bot.
So dissimilar bots at two different companies, in theory, were talking to each other.
Sure. Yeah.
About this. Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, they even had it online or whatever. Them,
nice.
Just kind
and
of
so
a demo.
then it booked trips, like what you said, travel agent. Like, what was it doing?
Oh yeah. No, it was going through all of the details, the scheduled details, and going ahead and getting all these things scheduled. Whether it was travel agency or, whatever the requirements, were. So it was something to behold. But it just brought into my mind, we have all of these use cases. So these things are designed for all of these use cases, and then they take off, right? And then the frameworks are written, and then they, these things are accomplished. And then you go, okay, where's the oversight?
Right.
So,
right.
And it is, I mean, remember the days on the sci-fi and stuff, and this is, 20 years ago, and these sci-fi movies are coming out, AI's taking over the world, we've seen them, right? And then Some people immediately, they're like, yeah, I'll bet you that could happen. Maybe they're not in tech. And maybe some of the tech folks are like, there's a lot of, on the programming side, right? There's a lot of oversight. There's a lot of, checks and balances and so forth, right? Security-wise, programmatically-wise, and et cetera. But in the world of AI, and so you go, that's far off. That really couldn't happen in AI. The last year or so, I'm kind of going, I'm not sure.
It's interesting, Sean. I was with some Microsoft developers, I don't know, a month or two ago, and they directed me. So the CEO of Microsoft AI is Mustafa Suleyman. And for those who don't follow AI, he is part of the group with DeepMind that, basically made the first AI function the way we know it today. And so he has this book called The Coming Wave, and it's a fascinating exploration of what you're describing. He's like, what do we know? We don't fully know. We don't fully know how this is going to get handled. And so how do you help your clients? Let's just work with the premise that we don't fully know, once we unleash this thing, how it's going to learn, because that's what we asked it to do.
Yes.
How do you handle that with your clients?
Oversight and understanding that that depending upon their needs and what they're asking us to do, that it has to continue to be validated. Okay, so we don't just design this solution and then let it run wild without any validation. Okay, so depending upon how that service is, sometimes these bots are offered as a service, right? So where it's clear that it's our responsibility to continue to validate this, right? But we also need feedback from the customers and and how that's being handled in their use case. If we develop a custom solution for a customer, right, then we need their help on the validation side, because they're utilizing it, day in and day out and so forth. Some there's a willingness to take part in that and so forth, and some it's like, hey, we need you guys to get more involved in that, depending upon their ability or whatever. But just like from a programming standpoint, okay, we deal with a lot of audit and assurance.
Sure.
Okay, and just on the programming side, we're you guys understand this. You're going to develop a solution for a customer, and you're going to do that in the most efficient, most cost-effective manner possible, right? Your developers are not expected to be experts on security, okay?
Right.
So they develop that solution, and then you come back around with your security folks, and then you go ahead and take a look at it, kick the tires from that standpoint. But with AI and how fast it's progressing, who's doing the follow-up on that, right? And where's the framework, where's the oversight? And there is some legitimate concerns with respect to that.
And the thing with oversight, and I don't know, and Mustafa says in his book he has some theories, right? But nobody knows. And so I was thinking about the example where AI Go was playing in the Go. It was like a Go World Championship. And so for those in North America, if you're not familiar with Go, it's huge in Asia. And it's this strategy game, and it's considered to be many, many times more complicated than chess. And so AI is playing in this game, and every single expert that is validating AI's moves, I forget how many moves it's in, but let's just call it 37, right? At the 37th move, every single person in the room, the announcers, they all groan, AI's made a mistake. And so if we're validating, we might have stopped right at that point and said, well, this is a mistake. But shortly thereafter, AI won. It had identified a pattern that no human that we're aware of had ever identified before. So how do we discern that in my 50 million records, AI found a pattern that I should know that's going to make me better, faster customer service, but its initial recommendation looked like a hallucination?
Right. Exactly.
What do I do?
Exactly. And that's to follow it all the way through. But that takes time. And see, you have to balance this.
What time? How much time we got to take?
Exactly. Can we follow every single one of those cases, follow it to its conclusion? Do we have the time to do that? Do we have the resources to do that? Do we have the willingness to do that? Right. So, and that's the question, right? I mean, even right now, like we discussed, programmatically, you have a programming language, and generally speaking, the meanings of the programming language are understood, and it's, and the boundaries associated with that. Okay. Generally speaking, right.
Right.
But in AI, right. And when you're talking about self-learning, and going out of the bounds, right, of the, of that general,
right.
Then, well, I could take this meaning, and that meaning could change.
Right.
And if that meaning changes, then it's open season, right?
Maybe.
Okay,
right.
That's the potential of what some people are concerned about.
And so how are you addressing that with your clients?
Well, so, that it's, a lot of times when you're talking with folks, it's like, from a project standpoint, right? So some of it's project based, and here's the beginning of the project, and then here's the end of the project. And with AI, it's like, okay, yes, but no, right? So we are going to have this project, and here's the life cycle. But when this is done, right, what do you plan to do? Okay, you've stored all this data. Are you going to continue adding to that? Okay, so that it can continue learning, because what's the point, right? If you're going to just stay there and then not continue to grow. And if that's so, then we continue to need validation of that. And that's another topic too, with respect to that, Tom, that, who's willing to participate in that validation, right? So are we the best people to be validating that data, or is the customer themselves the best, if it's specific to their industry and what they do?
Well, what I found fascinating, and I didn't think of this on my own. Somebody gave me a tip, but first I always turned on the footnotes, right? Like, tell me where cite your sources, right? And so I didn't realize. AI wants to give me an answer, even if it doesn't know the answer.
That's correct, yeah.
And it will give me a source for an incorrect answer because I told it to give me a source. But if I don't take the time to check the source, I may not realize that that's all fiction. The link it gave me to the source, it's a source, but it doesn't have anything to do with what it's telling.
You nailed it. So so we talked about use cases. So there's all these different use cases. So we'll give the customer a list of use cases, right? And then we'll give them another list, right, of kind of general parameters when let's say you give ChatGPT a prompt, okay? And as we know, like, remember in the early days of, Google or, search engines and stuff, it was all about your ability, my ability to be able to understand the keywords to type in and how they to generate the most accurate, types of results for me. And then obviously over the years, Google and others, but mainly Google, they incorporated AI actually even within their search engines, and that's what made them one of the reasons it made them so powerful and accurate. So now you have these things, these capabilities, but the understanding that it has, or the logic that's being used, is constantly changing and morphing. And are we able to stay on top of that?
Right. I think that's a question for all of us, and I know many of our viewers, certainly the VCIO clients, they all start, and I'm sure you must hear this. I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody who got referred to us, and they said, Tom, we want to do AI, but we don't even know where to start. Like, how do you guide them through? I mean, I know what we do, but how do you suggest guiding a customer that doesn't have any idea where to start? How do you get them started?
So, we generally will take the person that or group of people that are responsible for results, right? Because like we said before, I was telling you before, it depends upon whether there's a surge in one department or whether it's as a team and an organization. So we start there, and then how solid their internal controls are, because once they generate this, it has to be documented and people have to understand how to use it, right? And for highest percentage of successful user adoption in that company, right? And so those are all kind of key elements. But when we get down to the meat and potatoes of it, once those people that, are starting to work with it, we need to understand what their level of understanding is on that particular. And sometimes we will offer them trainings first.
So what type of training are we offering?
So with respect to understanding the process, so that when we're working with them on this, like we said, data collection, a lot of times people will think, okay, great, we'll just throw a bunch of data up there and it's going to be able to sort it out itself, AI.
Yeah.
Well, no, it doesn't work that way. It just kind of like we were talking about ERP, if you've got dirty data in there, whatever, right?
Never seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure with all of your years experience in that. So you understand what I'm talking about, and there needs to be kind of a cleaning period. Sometimes they've collected all the data, but everybody's scared to do something with it. They're like, oh crap. It's almost like the days of deduplication. I'm worried that
I can't throw this one away.
That's exactly right. I might think this is a duplicate, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And no one wants to touch it. And so all of a sudden you have all these, storage goes up and up and up. So a lot of times you'll get that, and it's just encouraging them, and it's like, hey, we're here. We're going to help you through this process.
Yeah.
But the more actively you participate with it, if it's your data specific to your business that you're winning, then the more successful that you guys are going to be.
Sean, I really appreciate you touching on the data again, because I'm thinking through in my head, we're in a couple of recent, and this isn't even AI, this is just reporting, but I'm hoping that a few of our listeners can recognize this in their organizations. But we're normalizing data. We're doing it within a Fabric environment. We're getting all this set up. And they're having a hard time agreeing on what their data means internally. And, and they look at us, and, you said the thing, that's what made me smile. It's your data. I can help share with you some best practices. I can help, but I don't know your data. Only you know your data. And based on the 6 of you that don't agree at this table, you don't even know your own data.
Right.
So how do you walk them through that process?
Part of the training we talked about is understanding the difference between your chat GPTs out there, right? Because a lot of times the users don't even think about that. They're just thinking about what they want it to do. And then it's like, okay, well, hold on. How does chat, and then we go through that process. How would chat GPT or something like that operate? It's pulling everything, right? From everywhere, all those sources.
Yeah.
Right. And then we go through the specifics on, okay, now what you're wanting to do on your ERP system, would it help you to accomplish this use case if you're pulling it from the internet? No. Because the internet doesn't know anything about your internal operations, right? So sometimes it starts as simple as that, and then we go from there, and then they start to go, oh, okay. So now all of a sudden the meaning of their data that they've been collected, right, and the accuracy of it starts to become more important because we've just explained to them it's not going to be able to work that out.
Because they understand why it's more important.
Exactly. So we start there. And then once we get them drinking the Kool-Aid, okay, I got it. Validation is important of data, right? Making sure the accuracy and so forth.
Right.
Then they're willing to kind of put those resources in to go ahead and help us with that.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So we walk them through the process. We've got some data. Talk about, have you done a recent pilot project or something with a client that you can share with us? Give our users or our viewers an example of something you've delivered?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have, I mentioned a little bit on the sales bot side, for sales organizations or sales departments, for them to be able to have a sales bot that will explain, whether it's in voice. We call ours Phoebe. Her name is Phoebe.
Okay.
Yeah. So Phoebe will explain to the prospective customer, hey, this is how can we help you? What are your pain spots? What is it that you want? Not just based around the services or whatever. And then we'll kind of automatically start to qualify while that person's talking about what their needs are, what their pain spots are, what they're looking for. And so we're taking kind of almost that sales qualification list and incorporating that with also the information that's being provided to that prospective customer at the same time. And then and so Phoebe will kind of qualify that and address their needs, and then basically say, well, listen, I'd like to set up an appointment for you if you'd like, and then schedules the appointment automatically with the prospective customer, and then in whatever type of calendaring program or whatever the company uses and so forth. And then essentially the idea here is that the salesperson, all they need to do is get on their calendar and make sure that they keep their calendar events and close deals. They don't really have to focus on any of the other part of that process.
That's slick, Sean. So now this bot's available.
Yes.
Right? Okay. And so let me get this straight, because I spent a lot of time training sales teams, and this sounds pretty powerful. So I visit your website. My friend Phoebe is going to come in and ask me a few questions, and she's going to be friendly, and she's going to know everything she needs to know from a technical perspective. And then if I continue to indicate interest, she will attempt to set up an appointment and automatically schedule it on the appropriate salesperson's calendar.
That's correct.
Oh.
And understand the salesperson that would be most appropriate for, based upon conditions that have been laid out.
Very nice.
Yeah. So with that said, there is some work, with as far as communication with our customer. Like if we said, okay, customer comes, they say we want that too.
Right.
For us, right? We want you to provide that service.
Right.
Okay, now we have to understand their business, right? We have to collect that data and let the AI bot absorb that, and then start to validate it and make sure. And so there is a process through that. It's not just we cookie cutter apply to your business, because your business obviously is different than my business,
right,
and the parameters that we've laid out. So it needs to go through that whole process again.
Right.
But it really is phenomenal. How people are able to leverage this now.
This has been a fascinating conversation. Thanks so much for being here. I want to say thanks to all our viewers. We appreciate you being here, and we hope you'll join us next time on the CIO Lifeline. Take care.